In a peaceful village cradled between the lush hills of northern India, lived a woman named Meera. She was 36, and her face carried traces of quiet sorrow, with eyes that had long forgotten the spark of dreams. Yet, her heart still burned with fierce love for her children, Anaya and Kabir. Life had always been harsh to Meera, especially since that night 10 years ago, during a violent monsoon storm. That night, her husband Rav stormed out after a heated argument. Overwhelmed by their growing debts and the burdens he never learned to bear, he walked out into the storm and never came back. Some villagers believed he fled to the city, seeking escape. Others whispered that he had ended his life by the river. No one ever found out the truth. What remained was the silence, and Meera, left alone to piece her life back together. From that moment on, she carried the roles of both mother and father. Her pride was stitched into every worn piece of her sari. Each morning, even before the birds began their songs, Meera would wake up, wrap her old dupatta around her head, and step into the misty dawn. She would spend her day sweeping and scrubbing the floors of those who were well-fed and elegantly dressed. Her hands had become hardened, her back constantly ached, and her spirit bore invisible bruises from the indifferent stares of society. The few rupees she earned could barely cover the cost of rice and lentils. Milk was a rare indulgence. New clothes were only a dream. Anaya and Kabir never once complained, but Meera could see the silent hunger in their eyes and how they looked with longing at the lunchboxes of other children. At night, when the village dimmed and her children curled up together in sleep, Meera would sit quietly in the corner of her mud-walled home. She would stare at the cracks in the walls and softly ask, "Why me?" Her tears would fall as silently as the rain. No one noticed. Women in the village often gossiped behind her back. "She brings bad luck," they'd say. Their cruel words became shadows that clung to Meera's soul, and over time, she began to believe them. There were nights when she despised her life, not for herself, but for all the things her children were missing out on. One afternoon, Anaya came home from school, her face soaked in tears. "Ma," she sobbed, "the girls laughed at my torn clothes. They said I looked like a beggar." Meera embraced her tightly, whispering, "In my eyes, you're a queen, Anaya. Never let anyone else tell you your worth." But inside, Myra's heart snapped like a brittle twig. That same evening, Kabir brought her a drawing he'd made at school, a stick-figure family under a bright sun. In the center stood a smiling woman with wild hair and big hands. Beneath it he had written, "My superhero Ma." Myra's breath caught in her chest. She had never seen herself the way her children saw her. They didn't care about silk or silver. They loved her just as she was. Her tired hands were heroic in their eyes. Something shifted in her that night. A tender but fierce flame ignited within her heart. The next morning, Meera awoke not with dread, but with determination. She whispered to herself, "No more tears. If I am all they have, then I must become more than I ever thought possible." She began taking on extra work, mending torn clothes, sewing blouses, even learning embroidery by moonlight. Her fingers often bled from the effort, yet her determination never faltered. With her first modest savings, she surprised Anaya with a brand new blue dress and got Kabir a used sketchbook. The light in their eyes was worth more than any treasure. One day, while collecting payment from a schoolteacher, Meera caught the attention of Mrs. De Souza, a kind woman who led a local women's community group. She told Meera about a small-scale business program that trained women in skills and helped them start ventures. Meera hesitated and asked, "What could I possibly do?" Mrs. De Souza smiled and replied, "What you've always done, nurture, create, cook. Why not begin with your pickles?" Meera laughed nervously. "Who would buy my pickles?" The teacher said softly, "Let the world decide." So, with trembling hands and a hopeful heart, Meera began bottling her homemade mango and chili pickles. Her first jars sold quickly. People loved the bold flavor, much like her resilience. Slowly, order by order, week by week, her small business blossomed. Her income grew. She repaired the leaking roof, bought new notebooks for her children, and their school performance improved. Her once damp, silent home now echoed with laughter. She no longer loathed her life. She had lived it with courage, grace, and a love that never wavered. Life doesn't always go the way we want. It can scar us, test us, and break us in the quiet when no one's watching. But it's in those hidden moments, when we choose to keep going, keep loving, and keep believing, that true strength is born. Mira never wore a suit of armor or held a sword. She held her family together with her bare hands, with quiet faith and boundless courage. Don't despise your life just because it's hard. Often, the hardest journeys become the most powerful stories. Not because they were easy, but because someone refused to be defeat.